En zo vanzelf ging al die bronnen af. Maar er verandert nu wel. Ja. Ja. Moet je niet gewoon in PowerPoint ook doen?
Maar is dat ook?
Of F4, dat is schermdelen.
Oh, hier.
Yes, but thanks.
No.
This one, yes.
No, how do I?
Okay. That's what they see on the screen,
Okay.
and this is your next slide that is coming up, so then you know when it's coming.
Okay.
This should be your first slide, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can just put the arrows there.
Thank you.
Good luck.
So all of you guys know that I'm Andrea, and I want to tell you a little bit about my story because I think it's important for the registry so that it'll all come together, let's just put it that way, and you'll understand a little bit more why the registry is so important. So my son Aiden was diagnosed at age 2 at Arkansas Children's Hospital, and it was just a fluke that we had a very easy diagnosis. Aiden had 2 6-week in 2 separate incidences 6 weeks apart of a pneumonia type illness, and they thought it was very odd that it kind of settled in the same part of the left lung. And during the second hospital stay, they found that he had a heart murmur, and so upon that they started doing a little bit more, a lot more tests actually. One thing led to another. We got a CT, and when they got the CT results back, they were a little perplexed. They didn't understand and never seen anything like ATS before. So I'm sure that each of you are dealing with this or have dealt with it, especially if you have to go to a new emergency care or see a new physician. It's like we're having to tell our stories a million times over again, and it gets very old. So what this registry will help us so that maybe we can have better diagnosis plans, treatment options, and it will help us in some ways bring more awareness to ATS. It's not just a registry. There's lots of meanings behind it and the importance of it. So Aiden had great care at Arkansas Children's, and that's why we chose to start the first clinic in the world there. His cardiologist, Dr. Fontenot, has been amazing, and Aiden would not be alive today if it hadn't been for Dr. Fontenot. He ended up needing, he had right heart pressures that were very high, and he is at 2, his heart was starting to enlarge, and so they told us that our only option was surgery. And so I happen to be a very strong individual, and I didn't like the fact that because I'd worked with lots of physicians in the past with my degree, and so I didn't like the fact that they couldn't tell me what his prognosis was or what was going on. So I started researching, and I got in touch with some other physicians around the world, and they helped my physicians make a plan for Aiden. And so he's the first arterial Tortuosi syndrome patient in the U.S. to have had pulmonary patchplasty, where they open the chest, and in his particular case, on his left pulmonary artery, he had a large hairpin kink that came up and came down. And so it was cutting off the blood flow to his left lung and causing extreme pressures in his heart. So if Aiden had continued down the path that he was going down, then he would have gone into heart failure. And up until now, and I can tell you the story about this later, we couldn't really fight for a heart transplant, and they told us that he would virtually die without this surgery if we didn't correct something. So since it had never been done in the U.S. before, we all worked, and they were great to let me be a part of this and help them find other physicians that had treated children like this before. And so we became a team very early on. And that's definitely something else I want to talk with you guys about individually or whatever, is making that team with your physicians. But he ended up having the surgery at 2. And then 6 weeks later, we came back on December 4th. I'll never forget. September 24th was his surgery, and then December 4th he had another cath. And Aiden was, Dr. Fontenot was this very regal, educated man who is very kind and I can't imagine. You'll just have to watch the videos, and I hope that one day you get to meet him. But he had told me beforehand that never in his career had he had any child have a pulmonary reperfusion injury. So basically, but it had happened like 6 weeks before to one particular patient. And so he just kind of said, "Oh, Andrea, I just think you just need to watch his breathing, that this could probably happen. I don't expect it. It's only happened one other time in my entire career, and this is just really weird." It did happen for Aiden, and it was very, very scary. And Aiden spent another week in the hospital. His oxygen saturations were extremely low. And no matter how much oxygen they tried to give him, it just basically cut his drive off, and we had to let his lungs heal on their own. So that's something that, that we'll have to like watch, and we're creating educational materials, and so we'll try and help with all of that. But so anyway, Aiden had that done. He's had corneal cross-linking done. He's the first patient in the U.S. to have had corneal cross-linking done. And the particular technique that was used with him is very unique, and so it might be the only time that it's ever been done on an ATS patient like that. And Tyrese, he's had corneal cross-linking, but he had a different procedure, so that's why we really want to make sure. And our ocular specialists are asking that carriers do not have LASIK surgery. We've had one carrier patient so far. I know it's just one. But they are highly recommending that you do not have LASIKs, because she had to have corneal cross-linking and now wears sclera lenses. So it's very difficult and a very painful procedure for the first few days. So going into all of that, there's nothing with ATS that I have not personally experienced, and that's why my passion is so extreme at times, because it not only saves my kid's life, but it's going to save yours too. So we don't have a whole lot of time if we're going to help our kids today. So that's why this registry is really so important. And there's also a small portion of the registry that's about 5 minutes long or less that your physicians, we'd like to ask you to share this information with them. And then after we go home, I will give you a link for them to make it easier and a nice printout so that they'll know exactly what to do. But it's just a few quick questions that ask them like what their experience with ATS is, how they first saw the doctors and different things, or different patients. But I'll go more into that here in just a few minutes. But I want to thank Bert, because this would not be possible without him. We are all here today because he found the gene mutation, and well, I'll start crying, so I'm not going to talk about it. We can try and make him cry at dinner. So. I like to do that every now and again. It's kind of fun. Okay, so our registry, it's IRB approved, and IRBs are a real pain. I know that as family members, until I had to learn how to handle an IRB, I didn't even know what it was, what it meant, and I had not worked in this kind of research before. So this is the address to our IRB, and this is our protocol number. So if there's ever any issues, if you decide you want to participate, which I'm highly asking that you do, but you don't have to. It's currently in English, and we're translating French and Spanish, and I guess we're going to start working on Turkish. We'll be talking about that a little bit more. Bert, I went to Bert and I told him that we really needed to figure out a way to capture everything, because I, as the nonprofit leader, I hear everything that you guys are saying, and I'm mentally and taking notes all the time. Not that I'm, just about the important stuff. But he agreed, and so we started out with 20 questions, maybe, Bert? And over the months, it progressed into not just a registry, but it's also a natural history study, but it's not the typical natural history study that you would see that the physicians would do. We want to know what your daily life is like. If your kids have any troubles at school, if they have, like in the States, we have IEP, which is an individualized education program, and a 504 plan, whether your kids do sports or if they're short of breath. I mean, we want to know almost everything. And you might look at it and think, oh, there's 400 and something, almost 500 questions. But we've separated it out, so that's not quite so. I sent it out to other families ahead of time to make sure that it made sense and they could understand what the questions were, but it's also so the physicians, we can get what we need to, get us better treatment plans. So it's going to centralize all of our clinical data and our natural history study. We're going to be able to see the presentation of ATS and how it presents itself with each individual, what the molecular data is. So we want to know what your gene mutations are, manifestations per organ system, any complications, what your treatments have been, and what the outcomes were. So if you had instances like pulmonary reperfusion injury, we sure want to know about it. And we definitely want to know if your kids are having any trouble after anesthesia, because it's something that I personally deal with Aiden every time, and it's really scary. This last time he was really sick. So if there's new techniques that we can try with our anesthesiology team, then we need to start working on that. We talked about the quality of life, how it impacts your family, and the most important is you guys are reporting the information, and then we're gathering your medical records. So every time that you go to the physician and you have scans done, I cannot beg and stress enough how important it is for you to get those scans and give them to us, and we'll sign forms so that everything's done correctly and orderly. But our families in the U.S. were really scared, and they had a really hard time dealing with the part of it being a registry, because they thought that they didn't really know what we were going to do with your information. But the only people that are on this IRB that can see anything about you, like your name or any identifiable information, is Bert and I. And I actually could make it to where he couldn't even see what your name is, if that would make people more comfortable, but I would prefer not, because he kind of needs to know. But that's how safe that it is. And the IRB keeps us safe, so that makes sure that we have to do things in an orderly fashion, so that your information cannot be just used for random things that don't pertain to this, and so forth. So the objective was for patient-centered outcomes research, because it's important for all of this information to be in one place, and then that way, the way that we have our IRB written is that other physicians have to have a special IRB or permission to even access any of your information. And so when they see things, it'll either be you will not have a name on there, you will be given an identified number. So maybe 186 might be your number, but they'll have no idea, because it'll just be a random number that you're giving. Only Bert and I will know who that is. And we can show them pie charts of how many people have had, for example, pulmonary reperfusion injury, how many people have had thinned corneas, keratoconus, myopia, and things like that. And it is very, very easy to use, and I did all the programming behind it, and if I can do it, it's got to be pretty easy. Here is the actual way that you're going to access the registry. And we're working on a sheet that I can give to everybody, so you don't have to write it down. I'll give it to you later. But that's how you'll access it. And this is what the first page of the registry is going to look like. It's got our logo on it, and you're going to choose your language later, but right now you can't. You can only do it in English. And then this is the first thing that you're going to see. It just welcomes you to the registry. And by the way, we want to know about carriers too. We feel that that's very, very important. So if you are a carrier, you're a carrier, but your children as well, we would like the information on them too. And there's two different forms. First, is a scent form, and I've got these with me. They're for the ages of 7 through 14 and any adult. And I want to go, either Bert or I will go over these with you, make sure that you understand everything that you're signing and you're providing us. And the second form is the informed consent, in which I would need to speak with your children. I'm sorry, 7 through 14 is for the children, and I would need to speak with you and your children to make sure that that's okay. And then the other one is for 14 through adulthood. And so everyone under the age of 18 has to have an adult sign with them, but if you're over the age of 18, you can sign it by yourself. We just want to make sure that you understand that your information isn't going to be kept private and that we are doing everything to protect you guys. And there's a thank you. So then you're going to go down a little bit further and you're going to see that where they are. You should be able to access them very easily if you don't take care of it today, and your physicians can. And then you have to upload them before you go any further. So since we're here today, and if anybody through the week wants to go through the registry with me, I can take a picture of your consent form and we can upload it, and then when I get home I can scan it and upload so that you can continue. Otherwise you couldn't go through this at all. If you decide that you don't want to answer a question or don't want to do the consent, you're going to get this message. And it says that you have to do it or you can't participate. And then your first question is going to choose, are you an ATS patient, or are you a carrier or a physician? And then this is what it starts to look like. A place for you to upload and put your email address, and the physician survey should take less than 5 minutes, and we don't care if it's your pediatrician or your cardiologist. We want everybody that is in contact with your child's care or your child's care team to participate if they're willing. And we want to know really what we can do to help them with you guys. And there's the choice selection of ATS patient and carrier patient is very similar. There's very few differences between the questions, but it is important that you choose whether, because it all formulates for us on the back end. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that twice. If you don't want to finish the survey, because it is so long, we broke it down into quite a few different sections. One is about cardiology, and then we'll have your quality of life survey. And there's quite a few questions in each section, but you can stop and go back, and it should give you a return code. If you have any trouble, you could always contact Bert. He's really busy, but I would ask that you would contact me first, because I can answer usually right away all the time. Is that okay, Bert?
Sure.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes.
I have a question because I've met a family who has a whole family of carriers. And although Tyrese's dad is different to my other children, because he'll be the carrier parent, my question is for my other children, if I'm a carrier parent, like I don't know how I'm going to test them to see if they're carriers.
We need to talk with Bert.
Yeah, that's a question that I'm like going in my head for a few months now.
We can do research-based testing if we know the mutations that are present in the family, so we can have some files where you can spit in and we can take the DNA out of that. We can just look at the mutations that are present in the family and see who's a carrier and who's not.
And we've done that at the last conferences, and I've even done the test. So I mean,
they probably wouldn't do it or know how to do it, or.
Yeah. And the spit samples has a benefit that it remains stable for 1 or 2 weeks at least.
Wow.
While blood samples should arrive in our lab within 48 hours, and that's often difficult.
And then I can mail them out to you.
we've had some issues with mailing, so I'll work with you and we'll make sure that everything is right, because in the States it's really difficult sending stuff over here, so there's a certain, and it may be with your country, so you just need to make sure what you need to have. And we'll have to make sure that you have all the proper forms and copies, so that way when it comes through customs that it's all taken care of. Any other questions? We're working on other languages.
Work things out in my head, so maybe later on.
Yeah.
I have a few questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is places for you to put, like there's some more difficult questions, like what are your child's pressures. If you don't know the answers to those, we've not made those mandatory so that you can continue, but that's why we need to sign the consent form so that we can collect your medical records from your physicians. And those scans, we would like to collect them and house them either with Bert or myself, so that we can kind of go back and forth of whether my doctors over here need them or whatever. But they'll all be kept safe in a locked file, and all of your information is stored in an online storage that is guaranteed to be safe. And you have to go through quite a bit to even access the information. So we're not concerned about any loss of integrity at all.
I mean, how our information, especially with Vincent, we have a cardiologist in Sneek and we have one in Groningen, and they have they meet together.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have diabetes, there's someone you can contact and ask for the whole body experience, everything that goes along with diabetes. But with Vincent, I have to go to the eye doctor,
Yes.
and cardiologist, and to cardiologist who specialized in arrhythmias. But they don't seem to come together.
Well, and we need to work on that, and that's something that I've had a struggle with, and I'm very fortunate with my doctors in Arkansas because I didn't give them an option not to be a team. So I take no as a suggestion, so I will find a way to do what I want to do and need to do. And
when Vincent was under 18,
mm-hmm.
we had the kinderarts.
Pediatrician.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, pediatrician for the point where we go, and he says, you have to go there, you have to go there. But now he's over 18. No, look for yourself. There's no one, not one person you can go to and ask, where do I have to go?
Well, and we're trying, you guys got to understand that I have gone through everything that you're going through.
Yeah.
And I want to make it easier for everyone. And so I have made Bert our medical director, and so we don't start clinics without him being able to participate in the clinic and do evaluations with the patients. And there's not a patient that I have that he has not touched in some form or fashion or had contact with. And maybe we can work on a system to be able to help because every country is different.
Yes.
And we have physicians in the US and we have one on our team that's very difficult to work with. And we just have to do the best we can and understand that he's a human and they all have faults, and we have to figure out his personality and work around that a little bit differently. So first off is asking them to maybe get on a group email and talk about Vincent's case. And transitioning from the time when they're 18 is a struggle in the States as well. That's just with any care, especially in the US. So it's not, you're not experiencing something that everyone doesn't have a problem with.
Yeah.
But we just need to work together to figure that out. And then so the registry will take all of that into account, and we can look and see where there's gaps and holes. And I mean, there's a huge learning curve for me, as well as Bert and his team on how to do the treatments. And you know, as a mom, I want there to be a cure tomorrow, but you know, it's probably, we can do the best we can so that our kids are happy and have the most healthy lives that they can. Yeah. Is that anybody else? Thank you.
I got it. Ooh, you just turned off the screen.
While he's fixing what I messed up, your presentation was the most informative that anybody has ever given, and you need to come to the States. It was, yes. So I would like to work with you on creating more, that's what we're doing, is creating that kind of educational materials to be available.
Yeah, so that everyone understands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the most clear and precise presentation like that I have been given yet, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very good. The knockout with the speakers.
Yes.
Yes, that was very good. Very clever. I'm sorry, Bert.
Yeah, you messed it up.
Yeah.
Would it be this one? That's something else.
Well, I can't help you. I don't know.
I thought it was just this one, but
Ja, oké. Want als je dat deed, is hij gestopt met blazen, hè? En dus
ja.
dat klopt wel. Ja, is aangegaan.
Ah ja.
Oké, eigenlijk. Allee. En nu moeten we. Ja, is aangegaan.
Oké.
Nu moet je juist nog
En dan waarschijnlijk
switchen.
ja,
Maar het is wel.
een ander kleurje.
Ja, en moet nog wat extra geven. Het wordt beter, het wordt deze.